All right, everybody, thank you for joining us today. We're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you all for attending. We really hope this seminar answers any questions you may have. If it does not, don't hesitate to reach out to us. I am Ryan Moser, our Democratic Administrative Assistant here at the Board of Elections. I'm with Katie Hudson, my Republican counterpart. We took Hannah and Peggy's place. Many of you may have known them over the years and worked with them. We are the administrative assistants. We report to our directors and we handle the candidate filing and the election certification. We assemble the ballot content before every election. So we've just wrapped up a relatively small election here in November, and now we're turning our attention to the municipal elections in April. That being said, St. Louis County is quite a large county with lots of different political entities and political subdivisions going on. So our April elections keep us nice and busy. There are nearly 150 different entities who could place something on the ballot. So that makes us a unique place even throughout the country. So there's a lot to get to. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to go through every slide in detail, but if there's any questions you have throughout the presentation, put them in the chat box. Katie's going to review the chat box, and at the end, we'll also unmute you so you can ask your questions, or we're going to give you the chance to unmute yourself. So starting out, there's a couple things we want to hit towards the end, some new things that have changed over the last year. I guess it was in 2022, House Bill 1878 passed from the legislature, and that changed a lot of election law here in Missouri. So we are still dealing with some changes from that law. We talked about it a little bit last year, but we wanted to cover a couple additional changes that you may have been hearing about or getting questions from. So we're going to go over that at the end. And there was a court case that happened earlier this year that does impact the candidate filing process. We want to make sure we touch on that because it could pertain to all of us here. So to start with, we wanted to talk about authorized officials. So an authorized official is the person from your office who is authorized to certify election-related content to us. So this is important because it's the person who is going to come from your office to sign the documents and deliver those to us. So usually it's a city, village, or town clerk. Could also be the secretary of the board to your school board or your fire district. You're not limited to one individual. So we have many entities that have maybe a superintendent and a school secretary, school board secretary, maybe the fire chief and the board secretary, whatever you prefer. But we need somebody from your office to be your authorized official. And most of you on this call are likely a good candidate to become an authorized official, or maybe you already are your authorized official. Please send us an updated form if you haven't in the last couple weeks or so. We're always trying to keep our records up to date. So even if there have been no changes in the last year, send us a form so we can verify our records and update any changes that we may need. So you can email these to us, you can fax these to us, you can turn them in by mail. So all of that is an option for you. So hold on one second. We have a question here. I want to make sure that everybody can view what we're doing here. All right, make sure I'm sharing my screen. Okay, I don't know that I am sharing, so let me make sure that I am. Okay. Wonderful. So if I didn't have my screen shared, I guess I can go back to this slide here and kind of talk about, there we go. That's much better. Sorry about that. So for our authorized officials, again, these are important because these folks are the ones who will be signing the documents and submitting those to our office. So it's important to keep us in the loop. If you don't have regular business hours, so if you don't provide or don't have kind of Monday through Friday hours, provide us with a phone number so we can get in touch with you. So a cell phone or anything that you prefer so that we can always be in touch if we have any questions or any problems we need to address. And keep us updated with address changes, email changes if you've changed an email address in the last year, phone number changes, and political updates are also helpful to us. So if you've had a change in your elected officials, if there's been a resignation, or if anything that's going to cause an additional seat to be open at the upcoming election, let us know so we can know what to expect when you come and certify with us. Okay, and then let's talk now about the candidate filing process. So candidate filing opens on December 5th at 8 a.m. and it runs through December 26th at 5 p.m. We always encourage you to review Missouri statute. So this is RSMO 115.125. And we always encourage you to consult with your attorney if you have any questions, especially if you are a charter city and you may have some additional requirements or some rules that differ from sort of what's typical. So candidate filing is an intricate process. As all of you know, dealing with candidates is not always easy. And all candidates have certain requirements that are provided in state statute, including residency requirements, tax requirements, criminal status requirements, things like that. And your district may have additional requirements, so you should check with your bylaws, check with your city charter, your city code, and consult with your attorney on any additional requirements. We find that it's easiest to provide your candidates with a list of requirements, and so that's something you may want to think about so that they know kind of what's expected of them when they are running. Um, However, we do want to stress, and we'll touch on this more later, that your office and our office is not able to be the ones to determine if a candidate is qualified or not. There are different ways of handling that process that we'll touch on next slide, but um, yeah, you shouldn't be in the business of turning people away from filing. And when people do come to file, there are three major forms they need to complete. So the first one there is the Declaration of Candidacy form. We provided you with an example in your seminar packet that we emailed you a couple weeks ago. If you didn't get one, let us know. We can send you another copy. But the Declaration of Candidacy is a pretty straightforward form. The one we use, you're more than welcome to use the one we have. It'll get the job done. It's very straightforward. Your office may have a separate one that you've started using or that you've created, but feel free to use ours as well. They should list the candidates should list the name as they want it to appear on the ballot. So nicknames are okay if they're actually referred to by that name. So maybe Rick for Richard or Katie for Catherine. Where you run into trouble is titles like doctor, those can't be on the ballot, or nicknames that the candidates may want that they don't actually go by in real life. So if they want to put Honest Abe in their name on the ballot, that's one we've had in the past. We can't allow that one, but usually nicknames that they actually go by are okay with us. And any kind of questions regarding names on the ballot should be directed at your attorney. That's always going to be your best bet for issues like that. So the first form is the Declaration of Candidacy. The second one there is from the Department of Revenue, the Form 5120. It's a tax affidavit that every candidate must file in order to have a complete filing. So those two forms are sort of connected, and one is not complete without the other. They're tied together. So when a candidate files, they have to make sure they fill out that 5120. And the third one is the notice to candidate form. It's labeled notice to candidate. It comes from the Missouri Ethics Commission. So this form determines if a personal financial disclosure form is required or not. It normally is, but that form will help you determine if it is or not. And usually the candidates are going to want to fill out that long form for the PFD. The long form is usually what will get the job done. But you can also check with the MEC. Your entity may have a conflict of interest ordinance on file with them, which lets your candidates file the short form. But regardless, the long form, if they fill that out, will always get the job done. So we have provided you with some additional forms in your packet as well. We gave you both the short and the long form of that personal financial disclosure form in your packet. We also included the 5121 form from the Department of Revenue, which is the form used to make an official complaint about a candidate's tax status. So you may get questions from residents or other candidates, and we often get questions about a candidate who may be delinquent on their taxes, and we will always direct them to fill out a 5121. So this is the official form used to make a complaint with the Department of Revenue about someone's tax status. They will take that form and they will do an investigation. It's important that you complete that form if you have any issues with a candidate and their tax status. We also included a withdrawal of candidacy form in your packet. So this is for any candidate that decides they've changed their mind, they want to withdraw. It's a fairly easy process if it's done before the candidate filing deadline. So January 23rd, we'll touch on that later, is the deadline to certify. And again, if it's done before the deadlines of filing or certification, then it's a pretty easy process. If it's done after that deadline, then you should talk to your attorney. But again, normally if they're withdrawing before the deadline, it's all right with us and not a big deal. Let's talk now about disqualification and what organizations are qualified to take people on or off the ballot. So again, we do not have the authority at the election board to remove, disqualify, or reject a candidate's filing, but our friends at the Department of Revenue certainly can. So this typically stems from a 5121 form being filled out, and they will investigate any kind of issues. But again, a form must be filled out first. The MEC can certainly take someone off the ballot if a candidate has failed to file their personal financial disclosure form, their PFD, or if they violated any other ethics laws or any other ethics rules. So they can take someone off the ballot. And pretty much any other reason, like residency requirements or anything else like that, will fall under the purview of the circuit courts. So they can also take someone off the ballot. But it is not up to us to take someone off the ballot. It's not up to us to determine if someone's qualified or not. And you are not required to verify qualifications either, unless your district has maybe a bylaw or an ordinance that gives you the authority to do so. But if you disqualify a candidate or turn them away from filing, the court may find that the candidate is qualified, and then you could incur legal fees and court costs. So it also could lead to a separate election being called a couple months later on. So those could be expensive as well. So we really encourage you just to accept the filing and let these three groups determine if the candidate is qualified or not. All right. So next we have a series of kind of FAQs that we get sometimes. First of all, the deadline for certification, I wanted to mention at the top, is going to be January 23rd at 5 p.m. Katie and I will be here to accept your filing at that time. That's for the April 2nd election, and we'll touch more on certification a little bit later on, but that on the top there, that's the deadline to certify. The certification, that deadline is important because if you file late or if you forget to certify with us by January 23rd, you will need to obtain a court order to certify. So that is an extensive process and a costly process. So really, we encourage you, make sure that you get us your election documents by January 23rd. 2 weeks after this deadline is what we call the court deadline, and absolutely nothing can be added, removed, or changed, even with a court order 2 weeks after January 23rd. So that's an important day to know. Certification documents have to be delivered to us in person. So no email, no fax. They have to be in person by certified mail. They can come from you directly, from a courier. They don't have to come from an authorized official, but the authorized official has to have signed the documents. It's also helpful if you, the authorized official, want to come because any changes we need to make to the spelling of a proposition or what have you, we can make them right then and there, and then you can sign off on those changes if you are the authorized official. So, and if you choose to send us documents through certified mail, the documents have to be at our office by 5 p.m. on that deadline. Otherwise, they are considered to be late and we can't accept them. So let's briefly talk about RSMO 115.124, which is the no election required provision. So school districts and fire districts are automatically qualified. And the municipalities with populations under 2,000 can pass a proposition. Their voters can vote on this matter. And if they have a proposition passed, they also can qualify to forego uncontested elections. So a district will qualify for this if the number of candidates who have filed for an office is equal to the number of seats available. So, for example, if only one candidate has filed to be alderman in Ward 1 and there's only one seat open, then you could forego the election under this provision. If a school district has two candidates that they're looking for to file for director and only two people file, then the school district would not have to have an election. There are some more provisions for that we'll talk about next slide, but in general, that's kind of what that means. We use audio ballots for our elections here. We use accessible equipment that allows those with hearing issues can listen to the ballot. It's recorded by our office here. So we appreciate it when you are certifying if you complete the audio ballot form, so we can give it our best shot to pronounce all your candidate names correctly. Otherwise, we may make a mistake, but we'll try our best if we don't have one from you. We also handle write-ins at our office. So if there's a candidate who wants to be an official write-in candidate for an office, usually it means they've missed the deadline to file as a regular candidate. They would come directly to our office, no matter what entity it is. They come to our office and they would file as a write-in candidate, and we'll notify you that you got a write-in candidate for a certain office. Write-in candidates have to meet the same qualifications for as the other candidates, but again, we are not required to verify those qualifications. And if you have an office where no candidate has filed, we tabulate the results for all write-ins. So if there's an office for Ward 2 and nobody has filed, but there are some write-ins, we would actually go through and count those write-ins, and that would determine the winner then. If there is a candidate filed, but there's not an official write-in candidate filed, then we only count the candidates who are actually listed on the text of the ballot. So that handles write-ins. We wanted to go a little more in depth about the RSMO 115-124 because that's the not in election matter, because we've experienced some issues in the last couple of years about this. So we wanted to reiterate certain things. There are specific districts that qualify to hold non-elections. So school districts and fire districts automatically qualify. But for our municipalities, again, you have to pass a proposition first, and you have to be under 2,000 residents. Again, this is if the number of candidates who file for an office is equal to the number of positions available. If a candidate withdraws before filing ends, you still must hold an election, even if the number of candidates is then equal to the number of positions. So that's important to note. You may think you're off the hook from holding an election, but then all of a sudden, a candidate withdraws, and then you have to hold an election after all. So you also have to publish the required filing notice in a newspaper of general circulation in your district. So please read that statute very carefully and consult with your attorney. If you haven't published correctly, you may not qualify to hold or to skip the election. So you must do that carefully. And if you, several things we also kind of want to touch on with this is when you come to certify that you don't need to hold an election, because you still need to turn in certification documents to us, you will bring a letter from your district signed by your authorized official stating that it has published the required notice, stating the number of candidates is equal to the number of positions available, and list the candidates that will assume office, including their name, their address, the time they filed. If you chose to hold a lottery on that first day of filing, include their lottery number, and a statement that an election is not needed. It must also include the affidavit of publication from the publisher and a copy of the newspaper containing the notice and the publication of legal notices form. We will publish the notice containing the names of those who are assuming office in the newspaper. We use the St. Louis County newspaper. And again, we would always charge any publication done on your behalf back to you for the billing process of the election. And if you have any questions as to what newspaper would qualify as a newspaper of general circulation, you should contact your attorney. Again, we use the St. Louis County here. It's a legal newspaper, but there are others out there too that may qualify. So for the most part, if you're a municipality over 2,000 people, this does not pertain to you. If you are under 2,000 people in your municipality, then you have to have passed an ordinance or a proposition first. But school districts and fire districts can automatically qualify again. But just be careful that you're publishing your notice in the paper of circulation. So let's move on to when you come to our office to certify, what forms do you bring with you? There are several forms that we use for certification. We have fillable copies on our website, and we also included them in the packet that's been emailed to you. So you're going to include the certification of your candidates. So you want to make sure that you put the name of your district on the top of the form, the type of district you are, the date of the election, which will be April 2nd for this upcoming one, and what ward or district number the candidate is running in, the number of years in the term. Remember, if you have an unexpired term, to create a separate page. It's a different office from the regular term, so it's a separate office to be elected. And then include the candidates' names and the date and time they each filed. The names will determine the ballot order, so list them in order of how they're going to appear on the ballot. If you used a lottery on the first day of filing to determine the ballot placement, you should include their lottery numbers as well. include the candidates' addresses, and remember the rule about nicknames and titles when you're certifying. For propositions, many of you may be holding an election for a proposition in April. So include the exact language as you want it to appear on the ballot. So you have to include a title. You can choose any single letter or number you choose. Um, and it should be in mixed case, so including capital letters when necessary, lowercase letters as well, and include yes or no below, which is pretty standard. If a state law or a provision in your charter specifically lets you do something other than yes or no, please attach a copy of this provision for our records. And again, I touched on this earlier, but I want to reiterate that we provide you with a form for helping us pronounce the names of your candidates. So it's not required. If you don't fill it out, it's not the end of the world. We'll give it our best shot to pronounce your candidates' names correctly, but it is helpful if you want to include that with your certification forms. Your publication of legal notices form, which verifies to us that your district has published your legal notice in the newspaper of general circulation. And some of you may require additional publications than what is standard. So what is standard is that we will publish on your behalf two times in the county and after you've certified, that lets the public know there's an election coming up. We will always bill those back to you. But if you require additional publications in the standard 2, let us know. And if you're not sure about number one, how to write your initial publication, or if you're not sure how many you require, you should check with your attorney. And finally, the last form we need is the attestation form. This must be signed by your authorized official, so the person we have on file with our office, and make sure that your district names and the office titles are accurate. So, for example, if you prefer alderman or alderperson or councilman or council member, let us know what you prefer and we'll go with that. So those are the forms we're looking for when you come to certify. So we will look for those after the filing deadline is passed and into January. Again, that deadline is January 23rd. So for your reference, if you need assistance writing a proposition, we've included in your packet an example of some helpful things that you can look at as to word your proposition. So we prefer to keep propositions at 50 words or less, but sometimes there are exceptions that have to be made. So we're happy to work with you if really needed. But again, we aim for 50 words or less. And anytime, if you miss the deadline to certify, we won't be able to make any changes to the ballot after that certification deadline, any substantial changes to the ballot. So we can't add or take anything off after that deadline on the 23rd of January. So just be careful about that deadline as well. The next step, you'll receive notice from us, what we call the ballot approval. So a couple weeks after you've come to certify, we'll put together a ballot content report, and then we will usually email that to you along with what we call the ballot approval form. You'll proof your part of the ballot content against what you expect to be on the ballot, against your original certification documents. We will put in that ballot approval form, or on the content report, we'll put exactly what you certified to us. So if you realize at that point you've misspelled a word, or you need to change a specific phrase, we can work with you on that. But this is not an opportunity to make big last minute changes. So it's not an opportunity to add a candidate to the list or things like that. So if we don't hear back by the deadline we set, then we won't make any changes. We'll assume it's good to go. But if it looks good, please check the box that says there's no mistakes and send it back to us so we can verify that with our records. And we'll set a deadline, usually a week or two after that email that goes out. So be on the lookout for that ballot approval. But yeah, it's just to make sure that what's originally been certified with us is correct, and we can all be on the same page for the ballot. So we wanted to add this form because, as you heard me say a number of times, you should contact your attorney. When to contact your attorney, it's usually a safe bet. If you've got a question, especially any kind of legal question, you should contact your counsel. So any questions about qualifications, is a certain candidate qualified, this or that, questions about the Department of Revenue forms, the 5120 or the 5121, those can be directed towards your attorney. Any kind of ethics concerns that may involve the MEC, those can be directed towards your attorney. ordinances, bylaws, your city charter, things that you may have that are not standard can be directed towards your attorney. Withdrawals, especially after that certification deadline, that can be precarious. So that may end up in court. So your attorney can help you with that. And then late certification. So like I mentioned, if you've missed that January 23rd deadline and you need to certify after that deadline, it's going to have a court order. So your attorney is going to be your help with that one. Next, I wanted to kind of give a shout out to the Missouri Ethics Commission because they provide a lot of helpful resources to all of us here, to the Board of Elections and to you all. They hold seminars themselves on campaign finance matters. That link there, you can go to their training schedule and see what they have open. Their webinars do fill up. They actually have limits on who can all attend, but they may be adding more. I don't know if they're going to increase the limits or not. So check that out. They also have a YouTube channel that you can find, the Missouri Ethics Commission. So previous seminars are on there as well. Feel free to contact them with any kind of questions about, can a candidate do this or that? They're going to be the best source for those types of things. Reporting penalties. So if a candidate has missed the deadline to report a disclosure, that's going to all come through them. And if you need additional forms, additional notice to candidate forms, additional PFDs, they can provide you with those as well. So they're a great resource, and I just wanted to direct you to them as well. Last, getting towards the end here, I wanted to talk about some of the changes in the election law. So again, this is more on House Bill 1878. So last year we talked a lot about the changes this law provided with the photo ID requirement when coming to vote, because that changed through 1878. It also changed the window that you can vote absentee. Those all took effect last year, so hopefully we're all familiar with those changes. But we've been fielding a lot of questions in the last few weeks and months about some of these changes, so we wanted to address those. First of all, the political affiliation change. So for the first time in Missouri, you can now officially affiliate yourself with a political party. So your record can indicate that you are a Democrat or a Republican or a Libertarian, or that you're unaffiliated. So this is now an option on the form that you're filling out to register to vote. I know a lot of you have these forms maybe at your front counter, at your city hall, or what have you, at your library. So this may be helpful to know. You may get questions about this from your elected officials, whatnot. So it's important to know with this political affiliation thing is that it is entirely optional. It is not required. We are still an open primary state. So this did not change. When you go vote in August in the primary election, it will not impact what ballot style you are given. You're not going to be required to have checked a box on your registration application. If you are really interested in this, you can fill out a change form on our website or on the Secretary of State's website, and you can have your record amended to include your political affiliation, but it's not required. So you may get questions from residents about this. You may have heard about this, but it's really nothing to stress too much about. The second point is about the presidential caucus. So for many, many years, Missouri held a presidential preference primary in March, but that is no more. These caucuses have replaced that. So these caucuses are exclusively organized by the state parties. So we are not administering these elections. No election authority is running those. Those are all run by the state parties. They should be sometime in March, but any questions about how the caucuses will be run or who qualifies to participate, that should all be directed towards those parties because again, we are not in charge of those caucuses. So I wanted to make a point of that because you may get questions from either your elected officials or your residents about a couple of those points there. So probably the biggest thing I want you to understand today is there's been an important development in the courts. Back in January, there was a case in Columbia, our friends over in Boone County. Last December, there was an individual trying to file for the Columbia Public School Board, and Columbia was on winter break, and they put out a notice saying that if you want to file, you should make an appointment with them. And long story short, this individual tried to file on that last day. They were closed. He couldn't make an appointment, and he wasn't able to file. So he took the matter to court. He prevailed in court, and this sort of sets legal precedent now that you should probably have someone available at your office to accept filing at 5 p.m. that last day, December 26th. So I realize that's the day after Christmas. It doesn't mean you have to work a full day. If your office was already scheduled to be closed, you may just want to do noon to 5, but we strongly recommend that you have somebody available at 5 p.m. to take filing, because if not, you could wind up in court similar to Columbia and you would probably not prevail. Um, we always recommend that you publicize any dates that your office is going to be closed during the filing window. So, for example, we're closed for a training on December 7th. So we have publicized that, or we will publicize that, so that individuals looking to file at our office for various things know that we'll be closed. So if you are deviating from your normal business hours, always publicize that. Christmas Day falls on a Monday this year, so you want to make note of that as well. But again, we've been getting questions about this. Do I really have to be open on the 26th? Not all day, but in short, you should probably have a plan to have somebody at your office to accept filing for at least a couple hours on December 26th to avoid any kind of issues or matters like that. So, in closing, we provided you in your packet a helpful calendar with every date we could think of for every election that is coming up next year, big ones, small ones, whatever. That's all on that calendar. We also encourage you to check out our website. We work really hard to include helpful applications on there, helpful sources of information about absentee voting. You can sign up to be an election worker through our website. We have these really nice applications for finding a polling location or a sample ballot a little bit closer to election day. You can direct your residents to our website. You can find your representatives in your districts. We have a nifty application for that, and it's a great source for lots of questions. So in closing, if you didn't receive a packet from us via email a couple weeks ago, we are more than happy to send you a new one or send you an additional one if you need one. Just reach out to Katie or myself. And I wanted to also note a couple of dates we're going to be closed for filing. If we accept your filing, we're closed December 7th and also on the 25th. And we are closed for certification. You won't be able to come to our office on January 1st or January 15th. So those are dates to note. But otherwise, I think we're going to allow you to unmute yourself if you have any questions. I'm happy to take any questions from the chat as well. So let me go ahead and make that change here. So Katie, do I have any questions? Okay. Yeah, I can start with that one. So, Katie tells me we have a question about the lottery. So, on that first day of filing, you have the option of adding a what we call a lottery. So, you may have a handful of candidates that come all at that 8 a.m. time, and it's helpful sometimes to kind of manage the chaos is to have them draw numbers from a pot like a lottery, and that would determine their ballot placement. So that only applies to that first day. After that, you take it in order as they come to file. So they line up and things like that. Um, that is what we do here on our first day. You're not required to hold a lottery. A lot of entities choose not to. If you don't, then again, it's just as order as they come. But we do hold a first day lottery. All right. I think that's our only question. If you think of anything else, please feel free to reach out, call Katie or myself, shoot us an email. Our contact information is in the packet there. I may have had a raised hand here. I think anyone else that has a question certainly can unmute themselves. But if not, that's all we have for you today, and we're going to wrap this up. So thank you all very much, and we'll stick around a little bit longer to listen for any last minute questions. But thank you all, and we will be uploading this as well onto our website. This is being recorded, and we'll shoot a video up to our site in a couple weeks or so. So thank you all very much, and stay safe and have good holidays.